All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Tomboy Official. Today's Bootcamp episode, we're going to be talking about social relationships. I think it's an important topic, and I can just go by even just like play by play my own day on a social level for today. So my days tend to be pretty social, and it's not always like high quality social. More so lately, it has definitely been like probably this year, but I would say my days tend to be pretty social. First of all, I work in a job where I talk to people. I talk to staff at other sites. I talk to my own clients. I talk to the staff that I work with. And so this is going on for at least 8 hours of the day. I'm either talking to people or writing about talking to people or finding resources that I will help people get in contact with, and letting them know about those details for whatever they're needing help with. And so, well, not whatever, but like whatever is within my scope that I can find for them based on the job I'm doing. And so that's kind of how I start most mornings, is, when I'm human socializing, it's usually in that method, by 8 a.m. And before that, depending when I wake up, I try to wake up, and I would say, the social aspect that I'm more connected to tends to be more myself, my memories, maybe like some kind of spirituality related things. So there's kind of like, I'm kind of more, intentional about like connections with myself, or like what I'm connecting with when I first wake up, but I'm not really talking to anybody. Like I'm, relatively single, most of the time when I'm waking up, I'm the only one here. And so I'm up and I'm like, oh, like I don't like live with anybody in my bedroom with me at the moment. And so I don't really talk directly to people when I first wake up. I wake up early, usually early than a lot of people I know, or earlier than I would assume someone would be messaging me. So I do have some friends that work late nights, overnight shifts and things like that. I don't tend to text them anymore, like those hours, but I used to. The latest I might send a text is maybe 10:30 p.m., maybe 11, if it's like a specific like 2-3 friends I can think of that I would actually be texting at those hours. And usually it's like both of us can't sleep and we're just like talking about, it's usually some deeper topic that's like is on our minds or something, and we're just like chatting about something online or something. And that's usually what I might be doing, if it's late night or early morning. But yeah, I don't usually text people like that early, especially because I'm up at like 5:30. Like I don't usually text people at that time. I mean, I'll hop on their social media, maybe message them or respond to messages. Like if I just, sometimes I do wake up and I'll go on like Instagram or check my texts from the night before and then like text people back or whatever, but it's not very usual. Like usually I'm trying to see what it is I want to do before I have to start work at 8 a.m. because usually I've got like at least an hour. Like I rarely wake up as late as 7, so I'm usually up at least 90 minutes to 2 hours to 2.5 hours before I need to actually start working. And I do really enjoy taking advantage of that time. So yeah, during work, I'm working. Just depends on the day. who I'm talking to. Sometimes we have more meetings. Sometimes I have longer sessions. Sometimes, I do have days where I just do paperwork and edits and things like that, and I literally don't talk to anybody. But, throughout breaks in the day, I might be texting friends that aren't at work, or texting coworkers who are at work, or, we get involved in our own like private conversations on the side of work and stuff. And so I have a couple friends that during basically because we're on opposite coasts, between all of us. And so we schedule our breaks we schedule our breaks either at the other person's lunches. And so basically, like, when they're taking their lunch, we take a break out here and chat with each other. And then later on, when we're taking our lunch, they're, taking one of their later day breaks, because we're about 3 hours apart anyways. And so we kind of schedule our breaks or lunches like with each other. And then if we can't make it, we can't make it. And then one of my friends after work, he usually texts. Lately we've been doing this a lot, which is great. He usually texts me or us, and then when he starts driving, we know he's going to be in the car at least near an hour. Thank you, LA. And so we try to like get on the phone together during that time. And it's like the easiest way to just check in, and we continue kind of conversations. It's kind of just like personal topics that we always talk about. Not the same topics every day, but we go into a lot of depth about a lot of things going on in our lives and things. And you just run things by each other, look, probably almost every day. It's pretty nice. And then we're pretty connected, but in between that, so I go out on weekends, not every weekend, but I've never really lived alone for too long. And so I'm usually in a house where there's somebody there. The houses where I've lived, it hasn't been like completely empty. It's like there's always pretty much somebody there, not like 100% of the time, but a very large percent of the time. Like, it's pretty rare to not have somebody home like for like a day or two or something. Like, usually I at least see someone from the house or talk to them at least a little bit. So there's that. And depending how things are going in all the social relationships, kind of really determines like a lot of how drained I might be. So usually it's work where something happens and it's just a drain, where it's like something happens and it's just heavy or draining. And then it's like my friends might still want to talk because we always talk, or like, if I'm living with somebody and they might want to talk. And then some of the people I've lived with, like roommates and things, who I don't want to talk to anyway, sometimes they want to talk. And then it's like, okay, everybody needs too much today. Like, this is too much, But most of the people I know in my personal life aren't going to get offended if I'm not available. But I did have not a lot of situations, but I remember one of my friends when he like broke up with his girlfriend, and he was just like, oh, like I was going to call you, but then like I didn't because he thought, I don't know if he said he thought I would be busy, or like there was someone else he called instead for like a specific reason. And I was kind of like, oh, like maybe, people don't find me always available. Like, I know I do consistently have my phone, like the volume is hardly ever on, but also I spend a lot of time on my phone. I do a lot of creative things on my phone. If I need to really like flush something out, I'll use my laptop. But usually I use my phone because that keeps me out of a lot of the quality related, like, software. I feel like sometimes the quality of things, gets me a little bogged down because I get really warped into what I'm doing. So, for example, something as simple as recording an audio, recording and then uploading it to an app, or recording directly into the app like I'm doing now, just to skip that extra step of downloading it to a files app and then uploading it to the podcast app, just having the app. And just recording into the app versus like if I had it on the laptop, I would be very inclined to be like editing things and adding in more stuff and making it like a little more polished. But there's something about the cell phone that just kind of helps me to create like more raw, just content and just push content out and just get stuff done. Just for the momentum of it. And then, later on when I start getting more, like involved with things, or more, like basically later on, I plan on like polishing things up. I don't intend to have things to stay just like raw and just like rugged, kind of like, here I am recording from the car with the sirens in the background and me talking quietly because there's people by my car and all the weird stuff that always happens when I'm recording. Usually people just sit in their house by a mic and record. But mind you guys, I'm working from home a lot too. So it's like for me to sit in the house and record is like I was already sitting in the house for 8 hours on my phone or on the computer, so it's like, I don't know, sometimes I don't want to do more, but of the same thing, but, yeah, I have a lot of social related things that I do. I find it to be helpful, to have a lot of social stuff. I mean, I'm not even counting in, like if I'm on Instagram or if I'm on, social media related socialization or like hobby related things. But I mean, humans are very social creatures. And I really think, a lot of us coming out of the Rona, did have a lot of times where we were probably, the majority of us were probably more isolated than before, or were isolated with people that you hadn't normally been isolated with. Because it's possible that you could live with people that were pretty much never home. And then when the Rona happened, you were living with people who were always, all of you, home all the time, all together, for a while. And so I usually focus on the opposite, where it's like, but yeah. But one thing that stuck out to me last year during Pride and during just socializing in general, last year was probably the first year that I recall where, well, not last year necessarily, I guess summer of 2020, maybe it was summer of 2020 Pride. Kind of last year too, but summer of 2021 as well. Because there was no parade, there was no festival. And so, because there was no festival, and then people were kind of doing, their own things. I remember we did a park, like we hung out at Balboa Park and hung out we had like a little like outdoor kickback games, on towels or blankets, or like kind of like a picnic, but like not a huge one. We all had our own blankets, and we were like playing games in the center, card games, and just chatting. Had some music low in the background, like some fun music, and we were enjoying ourselves. Versus usually, when it's like bars and clubs and things where like you can't really talk to each other. But that was probably what I noticed most, was getting back in touch, getting in touch with people in a different way that I hadn't normally been getting in touch with them. But also it's fun to just go out and have fun. It doesn't have to be like, some deep thing every single time. But, depending on how you like to socialize, sometimes, the depth for me kind of makes the quality different, especially when, there's like a connective quality with kind of associated with the depth of things. But like not dramatic depth, but just like depth of like, not necessarily just talking about the weather all the time. Something kind of deeper, meaningful. But that can be hard to find too. And yeah, I just think it's a good thing to focus on though, because I think for a lot of people, they don't focus on how they socialize or how they balance socialization. I mean, for me, I feel like I'm a little too social. Like, I feel like I also take like an introspective role a lot too. And that's what I prefer as well, is sometimes to just be like by myself, do my own thing, have a couple days just me and my hobbies. Like, I'm not really trying to socialize or go out or do anything or see anyone, or expend any energy on anyone that's not me. I get in that kind of mode sometimes too, but I do spend a lot of energy on other people too, a lot of the time. But I do for myself as well. So that would be pretty much today's tidbit for the Pride Bootcamp, is focusing on that social stuff. Finding your community. I think a lot of people want that, but a lot of people don't maybe put in the effort or find people that are also going to put in the effort with them. Because you could want that and you could try to do something about it, and then find a bunch of other people who say they want that. But if none of those other people's putting in any effort, if they never show up to schedules, or everyone keeps like rescheduling and canceling, eventually it's like, okay, you're not really going to have that group because nobody's prioritizing it. I mean, there's certain stuff like, funerals, weddings, like you're going to prioritize over like your new meetup group or whatever. But I mean, some stuff is like, oh, I have to do this with like my coworker after lunch, and like I have to do that. And it's like, instead of directly scheduling with the people you're trying to get to know, it's like sometimes it's easier just to invest in the people that you're already connected to. But I feel like that's, something to take into account if you're trying to meet people. That's something I've really dealt with in the past, where it's like I'd meet people who were like saying that they want one thing, but then like they're spending all their energy doing other stuff, and it's like, stuff that you can't even really participate in. And so it's like, if somebody really wants to prioritize being with you, you're not going to have to question that, like sometimes of course it's not helped, but it's like if you start asking people what they're doing, then it might be like if you start like asking people kind of what their plans are with things, it's kind of hard for people to usually realize how much they're rescheduling and all that kind of stuff. It's like, to keep postponing that one meetup. But I notice it's hard for a lot of people. I do know a lot of flaky people. Try not to be a flake. If you don't know, say you don't know. If you, usually for me, the only times when I'm not going to show up is if I really have something going on, like all of a sudden something comes up. Like for example, I had tickets to a baseball game. I was going to go see a Padres game, and I bought tickets. I had intended to go, but then, I bought tickets like a month ago, and then by that time I had forgotten all about the game. Like, it wasn't really like I'm not really in, like, I watch baseball. I like it, but I don't have a TV, so, unless I'm like at a hotel or something, I'm not usually watching it. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't really have, I mean, I guess I have a TV now, but I haven't had a TV up until like the last 3 weeks or so. But yeah, I was gonna go to that game, and I totally forgot that I even bought tickets because I had all this other stuff going on. Then I ended up moving to another city that's 2 hours away, but I mean, like, it's still another city. Like, it's not like close. And so I was like, well, I can't just like get back tomorrow, because I was working on the Friday when it was, and it was going to be on a Friday. And my friend was like, are you excited about tomorrow on the Thursday? And I was like, I can't go anymore. But I didn't even like cancel. I was like, I just totally forgot. But I had purchased tickets, and so it's like, okay. But yeah, I was just like out of the city. But yeah, things like that, where it's just like you just got a lot of stuff going on. But because I don't cancel like that all the time, like, I'm the one who will buy the tickets first. I will give you the money to get the Venmo or whatever. I'll Venmo you. Usually when people send out an invite, I'm like, yes, tell me when and where. And if I'm available, I'm going to get my ticket, and then let's do this. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've recently done that. If I can afford it and I want to do it, let's buy the tickets now when you mention it. Like, I'm in. But then I do forget about stuff, because I got tickets for stuff in August. I'm about to get tickets for things related to Pride for like June and July. Yeah, I got a lot going on. But yeah, I mean, like, because I buy the tickets for myself and stuff, people know I'm interested. You can tell if I'm interested in something because I'll, buy the tickets. But yeah, a lot of times people are like, oh, maybe, and then like they sit on it, and that means pretty much no. Like, they're usually not gonna say anything. That means they're not like prioritizing it at that moment, right? It's like maybe usually means either they don't know if they can go because they might already be busy, or they don't know if they're gonna want to prioritize that when it comes up. So they're maybe waiting to see what else unfolds. But yeah, you gotta prioritize things. We all have things that we prioritize, right? Like, a lot of people are interesting when they say like, oh, like somebody like can't prioritize, but it's like most people, you wake up, you get to school on time every day almost. You get to work on time every day almost. Like, there are people who don't. There are people who run late all the time for school and work and everything. But, there are, I'd say the majority of people aren't always running late. I feel like the majority of people usually have it together, and then they have like rough patches in their life where, and it could be like once every month even, or once every other month, things get a little, I need a break, and then you start wanting to sleep in and all that kind of stuff, and just can't function properly completely every day. And so that happens too, just naturally. But yeah, I think a lot of people find a way to get through what they need to get through, right? You find a way to get to work on time, even if you have to do this or that, right? And so when it comes to even like social things, it's like, okay, at a certain point, it's like it's just not being prioritized. And not everybody wants to socialize, not everybody needs to, but for the people who do, it's like something that you can't really not have in your life if it's something that you want or need in your life. Some people don't because of they get some kind of like a negativity from it, either internally or externally. Like some people just don't either talk nicely to themselves and make themselves so that they don't want to go out, or they have experiences where other people make them uncomfortable, or like they might just have anxiety socially, a lot of worry, or some other kind of condition that makes it so they can't really go out. But then like they need that, they feel like they're lacking it in their life, but they don't like do it because it's harder for them. And then things like that. So like, I mean, it's definitely understandable that there can be like people who don't need to socialize, don't want to socialize, don't have an easy time with it. But then if you can get to a place where, if it's something you want, if you're able to connect with other people, form the connections, or learn how to form the connections. It is like a study too. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't study their own socialization processes, but I mean, it can really help to study our own, to see like, okay, like why does this keep happening, or why does that keep happening? And try to see if you can figure out, if you have friends and people around you who will kind of like tell you about yourself, you'll hear what they have to say. You'll hear what they have to say when they start like telling you. But yeah, it's important to kind of listen to that too. And then like, I mean, if you're wanting to find people to connect with and you're putting in the work, you're likely going to find them, if they also want that too, because it kind of goes both ways. Like, you can want it, but if the other person doesn't want it, then, or doesn't prioritize it, even if they say they want it or need it, then that's kind of what it's about, is getting the priorities aligned. Even if you found somebody or some people and you guys get along great, and then you want it also to be like good quality. Like, you have to provide good quality, and so do they, or else it's not going to be really worth it or pleasant. There might be, I mean, a little bit of rockiness can't be helped, but it shouldn't like permanently be just like problematic and like arguing and things. It's like, if it's like that, then it's good to try to at least find out why, if you do want to stick around, instead of just like sticking around and things would get pretty miserable then. So you got to look out for yourself too. But like, study yourself, study other people, study where you're comfortable, where you're not comfortable. That could be emotionally or even like physically. Like, what physically do you sense when you notice that you're no longer comfortable. And it doesn't have to be like some drastic discomfort. I mean, just like mild anxiety, even. You go into a restaurant because you were invited to a restaurant and you both reserve it under your name. What's a good name? I was just thinking of this kid that I went to school with. There were these kids that were friends. Their names were Cheryl and Jillian. So Jillian is one of them. So let's say Jillian goes in, has a date already scheduled with somebody, goes into the restaurant because it's reserved under Jillian. The date says earlier at like noon. Okay, see you at 7 p.m. And then, you both confirm that you're leaving, and then your date's like 20 minutes late and hasn't communicated with you the whole time. Do you wait? Do you call them? Do you see if they're, running late? I mean, by this time, the waiter is going to be like, okay, are you the kind of person who, you would rather wait outside to make sure they show up? I'm kind of more likely to do that. Like, let me not get a seat and wait here for you. I'd rather just, meet you outside so we can walk in together, because I don't like waiting places too much like that. But, so that, or, let me see. Yeah, someone shows up late, like, how do you respond, in the 5 minutes after you arrive, 10 minutes after you arrive, 15 minutes after you arrive? Like, are your thoughts just like, they're gonna show up? Or do you start saying, oh, well, I'm just gonna order? Or do you leave? Or do you keep calling? I mean, like, 20 minutes late is pretty late. I'd say past 30 minutes, you're not really gonna, be there. And especially if they already messaged you like 20 minutes before needing to be there that they were gonna arrive in 20 minutes or whatever. And then that's 50 minutes later. I mean, but I don't know, things happen. People break their phones, people leave their phones, all kinds of things. And so, but it can depend on patterns too. Because, like, if you're with somebody who is always just like super late, which I have some friends that will arrive at places like an hour or more late. Like, to me, that's like, I can't imagine, like, actually saying that I want to do something and then always being super late like that, Like, it's one thing if, like, you're always busy or whatever and your schedule is kind of in the way, and then you tell people, oh, I'll be there later. But it's kind of like, really? To, like, every event? Like, even stuff that you have tickets for, and then you're even running late, like, the day of when you say you're gonna, like, show up somewhere. So, yeah, it's kind of something confusing that just kind of comes up, where you're just like, I don't really know about that. And, like, the other thing too, it's like just knowing where your discomfort comes from, like when it starts arising. What are you thinking? Like, do you start thinking, oh, this person's phone probably broke, oh, this person probably is standing me up? Like, where does your head go? And then what does it lead you to do? And, because if you're thinking that in that setting, how often do you think it in other settings? Like, it's kind of just, just study it. Study your own, patterns of things. It's important to kind of study them, because versus just like doing them all the time and going through the motions. Like, I don't really know, but yeah. So I think that's good for today. I mean, the day's almost over, but yeah, I was not gonna record again at like 6:45 or whatever in the morning. Like, no, not at all. But all right, thanks for listening.